Well, here we go on Dallas Fanzine, and I am delighted to say that we have the lovely Linda Gray joining us once again for a chat. Linda, happy 40th birthday to Dallas.
Oh, thank you. It sounds so funny because it doesn't feel like it's been 40 years, honestly.
No, it doesn't.
So it's lovely to know, but it just sounds funny to think that we were on the air we began 40 years ago. It's very strange.
Well, what do you think the show has got that others haven't, that makes the fans keep coming back for more?
Well, it's such a great question. And I don't know that I know the answer because I still feel that it's a bit of magic. And you in Ireland, you understand magic and all that wonderful stuff. I think it's a bit of magic. I really do, because how else would you explain? Because we were all grown-ups when we started the show. I mean, we weren't like in our 20s, except Charlene was very young. But, we were all professional. We were all unemployed actors, very happy that we got a job with 5 episodes. That was the original. And that was it. We were just thrilled to be working. And I got to work with all these wonderful actors, and I was thrilled. But we had no idea, none. And I don't know what it is, whether, I can't explain it. So I just feel that it was great. It was a great concept. It was perfect timing in the history of television. It was many, many things and aspects that took it to that really iconic level.
Mm. The last time, Linda, you were in Ireland, you were promoting your book titled The Road to Happiness is Always Under Construction. What was the catalyst in deciding to write your memoir at this period in your life?
The publishers in New York called me, and that's always a good catalyst. And they called and they said, we would like you to write your memoir. And I was stunned. And also, I thought it was a very lovely compliment. But inside, I thought, well, wait a minute, hang on, don't be telling me to write a memoir. I don't have, number one, I don't have time. Number two, I don't know how to do all that, pull it together. And I knew, and they did say, they said, we want to bring it out on your release date would be your 75th birthday. And I looked at my calendar and I thought, oh my God. First of all, I was shocked that I was going to be 75. That was a big one. And I was like, are you kidding me? Are you sure?
How did that happen?
40 in my head. How did that happen? And so they said yes. So I thought, well, I have a great saying in my head. It's not original, but when I heard it, it just appeared to be perfect. If not now, when? So I thought, if I don't write a book now, and I'm 75, and then when the hell am I going to write it? So I thought, well, that's a good time. So I set up upon writing my book, and all of a sudden, interesting memories started coming in, literally. It was like a download I got in my past and the things that happened that I'd not thought of in 100 years. 75. And and it was just, then it started to get fun. But the deadlines kept coming. And I was filming Dallas. I was in Texas filming. And I thought, you don't do this. You can't multitask. This is the ultimate in multitasking. You can't do that. And so, but I did. I kept forging ahead. And then we had 6 months where TNT couldn't decide whether they wanted to pick us up or cancel us. And so we had a 6-month hiatus where we couldn't take a job and we couldn't do anything. We didn't know what was going on. So we didn't know whether to cancel our condominium, cancel this, cancel that. We couldn't take another job anyway. And we didn't get paid. So it was kind of an odd 6 months. And then in October of that year, they said, well, we're not going to pick you up. So, that was kind of a big devastating news for us because we loved the show. We loved the kids, the new kids. We couldn't believe we'd been canceled. So anyway, that was closing down a condominium, shipping furniture back here, and all this nonsense. And then my publicist, he talked to someone in London, and they said, would she like to do Panto in London? I said, absolutely. So I went from Sue Ellen Ewing, who is now CEO of Ewing Oil. I went from that to playing fairy godmother in Cinderella in London. And I thought, oh boy, this is a contrast.
Big time.
But it was one, it took the sting out of the shock of being canceled after we were having such a good time and such wonderful reviews, and everybody was loving it, and it was one of those, it was a disappointment, and I thought that they didn't do a good job of canceling us for the fans, because as your, DallasFanzine says, we have fans all over the world, and I don't think they respected us. They didn't respect the franchise. I think, in my mind, I feel that they should have given us like 3 or 5 episodes more to sew up all the little plot lines that weren't finished. And I thought that would have been respectful, and then everyone would have been feeling better about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people at the time were kind of hoping for some kind of closure to the show for the sake of the fans. But as you said, the decision made to cancel it. But I believe TNT, I think we're looking at other genres to explore at the time. But we gotten so many comments from fans who were totally, excuse the French, pissed at the decision. So obviously your own reaction was you were devastated to hear the news. To be fair and balanced, on the flip side of that as well, we received many comments from fans telling us by the 3rd year there was too much emphasis on drug cartels and crime. And plus, we didn't get to see those big Ewing dinner and breakfast scenes on the new show, which were always a tradition on Dallas. Did you miss doing those kind of scenes on the new one?
Oh, yes. And I did miss that as well. And we were kind of disappointed by all the drug cartel, because I think that the key for was family drama. And that's the key. I mean, every family has a drama. And I find that even in the original show, when Patrick Duffy left and Jock Ewing died, there was an element missing. It's like people like the family to stay together. Dysfunction, they love watching all that. But it's the family, it's the glue that keeps it all together. And then I thought when it started going off to the cartel and stuff, it kind of was like, where's the family? What happened to the family? And it was kind of like led you in a different direction.
Well, as I said, the fans did want a proper ending to the series, but you never know, Linda. Dallas could come back someday. We always view it as the show that refuses to go away.
I think that's a very good analogy. Yeah. It doesn't go away, and we're thrilled for that. And who knows? Patrick and I may come back as Jock and Miss Ellie. You never know.
That'll be interesting, that's for sure. Now, apart from writers such as Camille Marchetta and Leah Marcus, Dallas was mainly written, produced and directed by men. And I think the only other female director, apart from yourself on the show, was Gwen Arner, who did a few episodes, I think, back in 1984. I do remember former Dallas writer Howard Lakin once saying in an interview that producer Leonard Katzman hated the independent thinking woman. Now, in your book, you mentioned the problems with Mr. Katzman and working on what was that male-dominated environment. How did Leonard treat you on the set of Dallas? Did he ever listen to your opinions?
He did, but it was definitely a male show. Definitely. It was the producers and it was the writers and mainly the directors. We were respected when the show got up and running, but he didn't. The women were I call them bookends. We were the reactors. We reacted to whatever the men did. Sue Ellen and JR as an example. He did something and she would do something in retaliation. So it was a very interesting concept to look underneath the why is this happening, and I don't know. I think it was part of the way he grew up. I think it was his rearing that was like, well, the women, that's the way the women are, and a lot of men thought that. That's the way women should behave. they should drink, they should look pretty, and they shouldn't say anything. They have no, verbally they should be seen and not heard. So it was an interesting concept to be a part of, and then watch the women growing and changing globally, and have them still a little bit stuck. That's why I thought I want to direct, because they need more female influence in the show.
Now, Phil Capice, did you have a good relationship with Phil? Now, I'm asking this because most of the cast that we previously interviewed say that Phil was kind of more distant and not as hands-on with the actors like Leonard was.
Well, that's true, but I liked Phil. I liked Phil personally, and I just sort of stayed away from the interaction, because Leonard was really the one that he knew every character and the interwoven character plots and details. I mean, he had this huge board in his office, and he knew everybody. So if you came to Leonard and said, I want to change this, I don't think that Sue Ellen or whatever would do this, and he would show you why, because it was this intriguing spider web. He knew everybody and what they were doing and where they were going. So you couldn't just change your part, because that would have a domino effect on the rest of the cast. So he was genius in that arena.
What do you think of the movement in Hollywood now for women to get equal rights in the industry? Is it long overdue, do you think?
I think so. I'm curious as to not getting so angry. I think that women do deserve it. I think that when women get so angry, they're losing the reality of what it is. It's like we don't have to be angry. We just can have our rights and say, this is what we need, this is what we want. Sometimes it doesn't happen as easily and as rapidly as we would want. But I think a lot of women feel very comfortable being a female, and they don't want to do a lot of the things that men do. And I think they've been quiet. We do want equal pay, absolutely. I think that's essential. And the whole abuse thing is ridiculous. That should absolutely stop. It's been quiet for so long. It's been scooped under the rug. So I'm happy that it's all out in the open now, and I think there's more to come. I'm concerned that it does not turn into anger. We have our rights. That's huge. Yes, and the money thing is absolutely huge. But I think women have to make sure that they're not coming from an angry place. I don't think anger gets you a lot of things that move people forward. I think that's what has to be monitored a little bit from what I see here in Hollywood.
Now, Dallas may be 40 plus years old, but the show was pretty groundbreaking back in the day. And I'm thinking long before Tony Soprano was on the shrink's couch, Sue Ellen was doing that back in 1980 with Dr. Elby, and this was a year-long analysis for Sue Ellen. Did you enjoy playing out those scenes and your memories of Jeff Cooper, who of course played Dr. Simon Elby on the show?
I loved that. I thought it was a very good plot line. Because she did need therapy. And I remember talking to Leonard, who was very open. I said, why did Sue Ellen marry him? I want to know why. Because he doesn't have any redeeming qualities. And he's a bad guy. Why would she marry him? And I said, I'd like you to bring in someone to play her mother, to find out what her childhood was like. And he was very open to that, and brought in Martha Scott to play my mother. And we found out that she was groomed to marry the richest man in Texas. Now, that does not lead for a happy marriage.
No.
Not in my book. And on the flip side, he was raised to marry, a beauty queen. So that happened to both of them, but that has nothing to do with love and heart and long-lasting relationships. So they both went at this relationship in in a backwards way, or a way that should never have happened anyway. So, but it was good, because Leonard did listen to me. He said, "You're right. We need to bring in your mother to find out how come she married J.R. Ewing." And I remember in the very first 5 episodes, I remember looking at Larry, and Sue Ellen had nothing to say. I was literally the brunette on the couch at that time, and it was they had to go around and do close-ups of everybody, and the close-up was on Larry, and he was going on and on about something I don't remember. I just remember looking at him during my close-up, thinking, "Who in the world would marry this guy? He's an idiot." And he's not very nice, and he's just pompous, arrogant. Why would anyone marry him? And so that was the start of it. That was like, oh God, he's not a very nice person, and why would anybody marry him? Anyway, that's how it started. So, and I loved it because it allowed for the relationship to grow and to expand, and I think that's when, audiences love that. That's what I mean about the core family relationship getting too scattered and getting away from the family.
Sadly, we're losing more and more of the people which made Dallas very special, in front and behind the camera. Yourself and the late Jared Martin shared many great episodes together, Sue Ellen and Dusty. What are your memories of working with them?
Oh, I saw there's a wonderful fan that puts together little clips of highlights that she loves. I think it's JR and Sue Ellen or something. Team somebody, I don't know who it is. She's genius. She finds these little clips, and last night I saw the sweetest clip of Jared and myself in a rodeo, and it was charming, and he was absolutely lovely to work with. I have such fond memories, and I was just shocked and very surprised that he had passed. So, yeah, those are hard memories. You just remember. I remember just a flashback when I saw this little clip that she had posted on Instagram, I think, and it was just lovely. And I just sat there and I watched it several times. I thought, I just have these beautiful memories of working with Jared.
I know it's probably a tough question to answer, but what Dallas storyline or episode are you most proud of, Linda?
Oh, boy.
Do you want to know what one of my favourites are?
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. That's always interesting.
It's the Valentine Knickers story where Sue Ellen gets rid of Mandy Winger. That was a fun one.
That was a great one. I loved that. Yeah. It's always the wonderful ones. Larry's favorite scene was when he put me in the sanitarium. And I would always argue with him. I said, "Why is that your favorite scene of all the scenes that we've done?" "Nope, I like putting you in the sanitarium." It was all that bullshit control power macho thing. I was crazed when he would say that in all these interviews. And I knew he would say it because they would say, "Okay, now what was your favorite?" And I knew the second they asked that I knew what he was going for, and I would get so mad at him, and I would tell him on air, "Why do you like that sanitarium?" Say, "I like throwing you in the sanitarium." Well, anyway, that was his. It was not mine.
Typical of Larry.
Yeah, he didn't care. Just like, I love throwing Sue Ellen in the sanitarium. I like that. Anyway, that was Larry.
What was your favourite moment yourself? What moment are you most proud of on the show?
Well, I always look at things like what is the story? What am I putting across to the audience? I always look at that. But as far as an actor, I loved in the first go around in the original show. I loved her drunk scenes. Because as an actor, I mean, this is very selfish, I know, but I still loved it. It used to take 2 hours to get Sue Ellen ready for camera. 2 hours. Made me crazy. 1 hour in makeup, 1 hour in hair. I was just like, crazed. And that was long before cell phones. You couldn't even sit there and do emails or text your kids or anything. So anyway, when I played the drunk scenes, it was 20 minutes. they'd sit me down and put like some, I don't know, a little bit of makeup, and then the hairdresser would put a little bit of gel in my hair, and then she'd say, "Okay, you're ready." And I'd go, "Yes!" I'm so excited. Anyway, so selfishly, that was so much fun, and I got to just blow it out. I just chewed the scenery and loved it, because I didn't, I was always very proper and not proper, but she always looked lovely. They always made Sue Ellen look lovely, and this was fun not to be so lovely. I just loved it. And then in the new reboot, I loved my favorite scene was at JR's memorial. I just loved that scene, and there's a story behind that, because I had asked the producers. I said, "This is going to be really hard for me to stand at a casket and say goodbye to J.R. Ewing as Sue Ellen." I said it's tough, because he had passed. Larry had passed. And so this was kind of sort of saying goodbye to him as the character, and then in the background was the saying goodbye to him as Larry Hagman. So it was too close, and it was really delicate. So I asked the producer, which I never asked the producers for anything. So I said, "I'd like to ask a favor. Could you give me 3 cameras?" Because they had to cover, close up and wide shot and all that. I said, "Could you give me 3 close-ups, three cameras and 1 take, because I can't keep doing this again."
Yeah.
I just can't. I said it's too emotional, too sensitive, and he was brilliant, Mike Robin, and he said absolutely. So, everybody else got up at the funeral and around the gravesite, and they said, their words, and then it was my turn. And so I got up and, walked to the casket and started, and I had not gotten maybe 2 sentences out, and people forget that we have a script. This is scripted, I didn't just create words. And so I've got about 2 sentences out, and the the gardeners came and with their blowers, and they had to say cut because of the noise. And I took a deep breath, and we started again. And then there was some dog attack or some horrendous thing. The dogs started barking. Cut, start again. And it went on. Then a helicopter came over, and we had to stop. So finally, I looked up to the skies, and I said, "Larry, stop messing with me." And I thought, he wants to be center of attention at all times, even though he's departed. And then everybody just started laughing, because it was like he was messing with me. It's like, "Oh, okay, you're an actor. You've got to go past these things."
Yeah.
And here we go. So, it was, when I said that, I said, "Okay, now I know he's here. He's messing with me, and stop it, Larry. Just give me a break, and you can start playing, but not now." So we went on and we made it, but it was like, so I was just, I was so mad at him, yet again.
It goes without saying that we really do miss his presence in the world. Yourself and Patrick were with Larry shortly before he passed over in 2012. Now, I don't want to step on your privacy here, but can you share anything about your final days with Larry?
Yes, because Larry was not afraid of dying. He didn't think he was dying. We saw him on a Wednesday, and he died on a Friday morning. So that's how close we were. Because the day in between was the American Thanksgiving, and it was almost like he had orchestrated it in a loving way. He had all of his grandchildren, and his son and his daughter were there, and then Patrick and I were in alone, just the 3 of us, on the Wednesday, and then his children on Thanksgiving. He had planned, and he had done it. He had planned to have a lovely Thanksgiving, like a picnic at South Fork Ranch, because all the children were there.
Beautiful.
And so he arranged that himself, and so that's what was planned. And so he was in hospital, and so obviously he couldn't go. But he arranged for everybody to go anyway, and they went. And then I remember 9 o'clock Friday morning, I got a call saying, come now, immediately to the hospital. He's gone into a coma. And so Patrick and I were there with the family, and, so we said our goodbyes. But we had this beautiful day with him on the Wednesday, where we giggled and laughed and told stupid jokes and, just were with our friends. But he was not afraid of dying. And I remember the sweetest thing is we all talked about, I said, Larry, everybody wants to die. When people talk about death, they want to die doing what they love to do. And they don't want to die in an old folks' home or something. They want to die doing what they love to do. And I said, at this stage, what's happening, and we didn't know it was going to be so soon. I said, you brought J.R. Ewing back to reality. You brought it back. And I said, and you got to play him again, and we got to work together as a trio, the Three Musketeers. We got to work together. I said, that's extraordinary that we all got to work together, and you played J.R. Ewing. That talk about if you're dying, you want to do this, the thing you love to do. So that's I think he orchestrated it. It was the best thing ever. So he went out with like a party. That's what he wanted.
His daughter, Christina, has since revealed in her book that her father never really stopped drinking up until his passing. Now, I know you, Linda, are an advocate of healthy living, and you tried to help Larry with that over the years. What was it frustrating for you as his friend to see that he couldn't kick his drinking habit?
Honestly, yes, it was. We tried when we came back to do the reboot. I hired. He paid, and I told him. I said, "I'm hiring a nutritionist for you, and you're going to pay for it." And he was grumbling at that moment, and he said, "Well, I don't need a nutritionist." I said, "Yes, you do," and I hired her, and she's coming tomorrow. And so he didn't want any part of it, and so she made, everything was organic, and we tried cranberry juice and water, and seltzer water, or Perrier or something, and we put it in a wine glass so it would look like red wine. Well, it didn't taste like red wine for him, of course, and so he didn't like it. He didn't like anything. He didn't like her food. He was cranky, and I was still the pain in the ass sister who was just being, well, you got to eat this. And I was the nutritionist sous chef, and I would go over to her house and help her cook. Then we'd bring it over to Larry, and he would sort of play with his dinner. He didn't like it. He didn't like anything. And I have a sense that the minute we left, he'd bring out the wine. I don't know. He just didn't seem to bother about it. So that's what happened.
Even in the end, you were obviously still playing that sister role to Larry, like you were in the beginning, right up until the end.
I was so mad. I would get so mad at him, and only because it was love. It was absolutely that big sister thing of we got a chance, Larry, to make it this show wonderful, and and it won't be very good without you, and come on, just hang in and just eat this stuff and don't drink and blah, blah, blah. Because when he had that liver transplant, his doctor told him, he said, if you drink one more drink, you're going to die. And then he stopped, and he had his liver transplant. But he just loved drinking, and that was part of the party process.
By Hollywood standards, Linda, you were a late bloomer in that your acting career didn't take off until your 30s. And in your book, you reveal that your ex-husband, Ed, wasn't exactly supportive to you in your career. Did your own success send the two of you off in different life directions?
I think so. Let's see. Because he was a lovely man, but I think a lot of men have difficulty when the wife, the girlfriend, they become successful. He didn't want that. He didn't want that. And, he did tell me that when I could be an actor, why didn't I become an actor when the children went to college? And I remember stopping straight in my tracks, and I think, wow, that's interesting. But when you're an actor, you take the jobs that are offered, and at this time, that this was offered to me. I didn't know it was going to film in Texas. And he, it was very challenging for him, and I totally understand that. It's because it disrupted the family, and then all of a sudden it was like the world wanted to know what I had for breakfast, and it was disruptive, and I totally agree with that. But it was the emotional thing that was so unnerving for me. It was like the support that was not there.
I recently watched an interview with actress Kate Mulgrew, who played Captain for 7 years on the Star Trek Voyager show. And when that show was filming, she was raising a family much like yourself during the golden era of Dallas. And Kate says that to this day, her children still can't watch her on Star Trek because that was the show that took their mom away from them when they were growing up. What was it like for you and your own children, Kelly and Jeff, during those Dallas days?
Well, it's the same, and it's very, very challenging to do both. It was long before. Now, and I don't mean to minimize it, but by the women now. But we didn't have TiVo and FaceTime and all the things that we have now, where you can at least see them. We didn't have any of that. We had a phone call. So you couldn't see them, you could hear them, and that was it. But you couldn't check with them and do little Instagrams and do little instant photos and whatever. It was that I physically was in Texas for 2 months, and that's hard. So I'm sure they resent it. They've been, they're very, very supportive, and I don't think they know how hard it was. And I don't want to be the kind of mother that says, "Oh, it was so hard." I don't want to do that. But it was. I'm sure it did some kind of little damage. It's like an emotional. You leave. Mom is not there. Mom's the heart of the family, and if mom isn't there, it's a tough one.
In the book,
but they survived.
You actually talk about in the book about missing your son's graduation.
Oh, that was devastating. That was one of the hardest things ever. And I thought to myself, I'm missing his graduation for a stupid TV show. And I did. I honestly felt that. I was so mad because I couldn't get out. I called people with private planes and said, "Can you please just get me there?" But it was on a Friday, and I would have to go to the graduation and go immediately back, and that was not possible to do. The airline schedule and my schedule didn't compute, so it was the saddest day. That was a horrible one.
Well, Linda, we're going to finish up here now with a bit of what we're going to call a Linda Love Fest. Okay.
Oh dear.
All right.
This?
Okay, because
lovely.
In your book you give your own personal perspective on how to deal with what life throws at you, and I have to say, Linda, that all the Dallas people that we've interviewed over the years for DallasFanzine, not one of them had a bad word to say about you. For example, here's a few examples we have for you. Deborah Shelton called you a little dynamo, good-hearted, open and appreciative. Cherie Wilson told us you have the sweetest essence she could only compare to her mother, and there's not a mean bone in your body. Kathy Podwell told us that you are one of the sweetest, kindest persons she's ever met. Susan Howard told us that Linda's always got a laugh. She's always encouraging to people. She was never mean or ugly to anyone and is a warm woman. And even Miss Victoria Principal told us that you are a curious person who loves to learn, is fearless and a seeker. So how's that for a love fest?
Oh my gosh, I'm standing in my kitchen looking out at my rain and absolutely smiling. I feel I want to cry. It's the sweetest thing. Oh, thank you for that. That's so lovely. I mean it. Wow.
Yeah. Seriously, I'd just like to add that between myself and Gary, we've been very, very honoured that you've agreed to come on and talk with us over the past few years. It's been very much appreciated, Linda.
Honestly, it's my pleasure, and I do appreciate you being so such a support over these many years. It's very appreciated from my standpoint. So I thank you so much for all that you've done and continue to do.